this point, I feel like I've completed a good portion of this Wasteland Survival Guide, and I think I have a good way of putting it together. Essentially, I want to arrange the chapters in the order that ponies might need to know certain things. So, if you get popped into our world through a magic mirror or something, you can flip through the pages and the first ones you see will be the first things you need to know to, well, not die. This chapter will probably be going further to the back because it's not so much about finding something to eat or drink as it is about making something new. And the best way to make something new is by remembering all the things you did something else wrong so you don't do it again. Then, over time, you'll see that after 8 Father's Days, the clay mugs get closer and closer to being symmetrical. Well, for the most part, anyway. Then you learn that your paper route makes you actual money so you can buy mugs instead. But then he says that he misses the wing-made ones, so you make new ones together and find out that those ones become the best mugs of them all. Anyway, my point is that the best way of learning from mistakes that were made in the past is to keep records of anything you can. Preserving knowledge in any form. Books, terminals, holotapes, memory orbs, or actual vinyl records is so important if you are setting up a new town or settlement. For instance, we are fixing some of the train cars around New Appaloosa, where my store absolutely everything is. So, come and say hi and buy something if you need it. And there was a really smart earth pony who knew all about mixing chemicals who said, "That welding torch is going to explode if you light it like that." And when I asked what he meant, he pulled out this really old manual that showed the exact amounts of gas and air that had to be mixed together. And I set the dials backwards, which totally would have exploded on me. And the reason he knew that is because of the old manual that he had found, and studied, and preserved. There's so many things that got destroyed by the war. Whatever kind of books or holotapes you can find could be very important and you might not even know it. I try to always make copies of books that pass through my shop so I can redistribute them later if need be. But sometimes I would ignore things that didn't seem valuable at all. It's really expensive to make ink or clean paper, and some stuff I just didn't think would be worth it. But then one of the books that I hadn't copied was picked up by some pony in my shop who had said that it was a journal of some pony really special, that they were from ancient history and wrote this really beautiful poetry. I had read some of it, but it just seemed like a regular diary to me. However, this pony was so moved by it, saying that he thought it had been lost. Then he paid me 100 bits for it, so I really couldn't say no. So, my suggestion is that if you do come across any kind of books or written information like that, try as hard as you can to make copies of it or store it somewhere safe, like a new library. You can even just move into an existing library from before the war. Just make sure there aren't any raiders in there first. With holotapes and terminals, it's very similar and usually a lot easier to make copies. Especially if you happen to have a pip-buck, you can copy a lot of information into one of those and then back it up on a server at your own settlement. You might even find some video games by doing that, which can be super fun. Like this one game, which has always been my favorite, where you play as a snake that has to eat things. But the more things he eats, the longer he gets. Then, eventually he eats so much he fills up his cage and the game ends. It may seem silly, but that is important information too. Because when ponies eat things, they don't get taller, they just get fat. But if you find information on a way for ponies to get taller instead of fatter, that could be super helpful. Finally, if you do come across any actual records like black vinyl discs, you definitely want to preserve those too. It's pretty easy to rebuild a phonograph to play music on them, but if you want to get the most use out of them you can, you first want to take it over to 10 Pony Tower in Manhattan and let DJ Pony make a copy of it. That way, the music can play all over the wasteland for every pony to hear. More than anything, that's the most important part of record keeping. You don't just want to preserve the knowledge for yourself, you want to preserve it for everyone. Even if you don't find any use in it, you could mean the world to some pony else who loves really old poetry. And if that information, those old records, could turn out to be something very essential, then you could be helping everyone by keeping it safe. At the end of the Great War, we got really good at destroying things, but it doesn't have to be like that. We could be the ones to protect what's left, to make sure that we carry it on for future generations who haven't been born yet. And before you know it, you'll realize that you're building something new together, and it'll be better than the older stuff ever was.